Welcome to the Versions of Healing, the interview segment of the Healing Version podcast, a space created to uplift real stories from real people on their unique paths to healing. In each episode, we sit down with individuals from all walks of life, from survivors, overcomers, healers, and seekers, to talk about the experiences that shaped them and the steps they've taken towards wholeness. There's no single way to heal, and no story is too small. Whether the wounds come from trauma, grief, addiction, broken relationships, or self-doubt, this segment is here to hold space for every voice and every version of healing. These conversations are raw, powerful, and rooted in truth, because healing doesn't just happen in silence. It happens when we share, listen, and grow together. So come as you are, and let's explore the many versions of healing. Hey y'all, what's up? And welcome back to another episode of the Healing Version podcast. Today we are doing an episode of Versions of Healing. So we do have a very special guest. I just like to give you a little background about today's guest. And thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Today's guest is a powerful voice in the conversation around grief, healing, and spiritual awakening. Angela Clement is a certified grief coach, speaker, writer, and healer who's helped others navigate loss with compassion, honesty, and hope. After losing her husband of 35 years to cancer in 2021, Angela's life was forever changed. Through her own journey of bereavement, she discovered that grief is not something to get over, but a sacred pathway, one that can awaken us to our truest selves. She now supports others through her community, Awaken Your Soul's Journey, where she offers light, guidance, and connection to those walking through the darkness of loss. Angela is also the author of Awakening Through Grief, A Journey of Hope for Healing After Loss, a deeply moving and practical guide that blends personal storytelling, reflective exercises, and actionable steps to help readers rebuild a meaningful life after loss. Her ability to speak to grief as both a human and spiritual experience makes her an incredibly compelling guest. Today's conversation is for anyone who has loved deeply, lost painfully, and is searching for healing, purpose, and joy again. Welcome to the show, Angela. Thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
Great. Thank you for having me. I really am delighted to be here and to connect with you.
Awesome. I'm happy about this conversation, although I know it's a hard one and grief is a hard thing to navigate through. I think that your work and what you're doing is awesome, and I'm just so excited to hear how you're helping people every day with something that we all dread, but we must go through. So I'm just going to kind of just open it up with your personal journey. So for those meeting you for the first time, can you share a bit about your life before loss and how grief reshaped who you are today?
Absolutely. So I was an educator. Actually, I worked in a school for over 30 years, and I was a principal for the last 12 of those years, and my husband and I had a cattle ranch. He was a cow-calf operator, and so we raised our children in a small village in southwestern Saskatchewan in Canada, and it was an amazing place for my kids to grow up, to work, to be, because many of you who maybe know about living in a small community, it's very close-knit. And there's a lot of support there for our family. And so it was an amazing life. I mean, we lived on a ranch, so it was amazing every day to get up and see the prairie and watch the sunsets and the sunrises and have the creek flowing through the yard and all of that beautiful stuff. And then my husband, just upon my retirement. I was just about a year out, maybe, of retiring, and he was diagnosed with colon cancer. And it was stage 4, and it was January of 2021 when he was diagnosed, and he passed away at the end of October of 2021. And so, yeah, it was something that, you just don't expect. We know that this happens to people, but until it actually happens to you, you just can't believe it. And I guess, in some ways, the universe, God, however people want to voice that, I felt like I was given a fresh start. And at the time, it felt like the rug was ripped right from underneath of me, and I had no footing. I retired from my position to help him because he was sick. We moved to a new community to get closer to a hospital. And so I found myself, after he passed, with, being retired, no job, just in a community that I didn't know anybody in other than my son. And just my whole life had been uprooted. And it was really difficult in the beginning to just absorb all that had happened in that short amount of time, and to try to figure out what my life was going to look like going forward. Because as everyone who's lost a spouse knows, you don't just grieve the person, you grieve the life that you would live with that person. And there's just a lot to process. So my life was forever changed. And it took a while for me to accept that and to be able to find meaning and purpose through all of that.
Absolutely. And again, I'm sorry that you went through that. And you all were married for 35 years.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. That's a long and beautiful time to spend with someone.
Yes, absolutely.
So you've described grief as a pathway to transformation. When did that realization begin to emerge for you?
I think it started to emerge when I was working through a course. It was an energy healing course. I had a huge fascination with energy healers from the time when my son was very young. He was healed by an energy healer, and I always read about it, and I did little workshops sometimes with healers, and I just had a fascination with that whole world. And so I took this course, and it was basically an introduction to a whole bunch of different energy healing modalities, such as shamanism, shamanic journeying, Reiki. And I just really started to see that there was something out there that was bigger than me. I maybe didn't know what it was exactly or what it all meant, but I started to really reach out and try to find out more about this. And through that process, I started to realize that life really has a purpose. And if I'm still here, then there must be something I need to be doing, or something that, I didn't think that my life now was just over, that there must be something that I would find some meaning or purpose in going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And you also speak about grief as a spiritual awakening. What does that mean to you on a soul level?
I think the biggest thing was, and I find this as I talk to other people who have gone through this, these big existential questions start to come up when you've lost someone. And it's often things like, who am I and why am I here? And, why did my husband leave? And where is he? And all of those really big questions that don't necessarily have an immediate answer. And what it does is it gets you starting to search for your own truth and your own belief system. And often that might end up, you following a particular religion. You get maybe more associated with your church. Find people that you connect with that have like-minded ideas and beliefs. And for me, it was just a huge opening to all the things that I truly believed. And it's a search. It really is a search to find what you resonate with and what's meaningful to you.
Okay. That makes lots of sense. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So, something that's just like a real truth, and I'm sure you see this every day, is how many people resist grief out of fear.
Yes.
How can surrendering to grief actually become a source of healing?
Well, one of the things I learned really early on was that the emotions that come with grief are really strong and powerful. And so naturally we resist them because deep sadness and anger and jealousy and guilt, all of those things are really hard to stomach. They are tough to take. And what I found was that we often are told that we need to be strong, that we need to move on in their honor. And that, I believe, is true. However, we have to allow ourselves to feel those emotions as they arise. And if we don't do that, then they just continually give us more and more opportunities to do that. And it becomes overwhelming at some point. So I learned early on from my grief coach that I needed to address those feelings when they came forward. And so I spent time in the evenings, often writing or, listening to music and just processing some of that really heavy emotion that was coming in. And I found when I did that, I overall felt lighter afterwards. And the more that I did that, the less overwhelming things were. And I found out that if I refused to do that for a while, then they would build again, right? So it is that releasing of emotion, and we're not taught to do that. So it's not something that we grow up just knowing how to do. So it's something that, my grief coach had to help me with.
Absolutely. That makes sense. I say that all the time. You gotta face the thing that you need to heal from. I mean, otherwise you're just burying it, and it's not going anywhere. It's just
no, it's not.
just somewhere festering and getting bigger.
Yes.
So grief can be incredibly isolating. What are some of the loneliest moments in your journey, and how did you move through them?
Oh, it was rough, especially in the beginning, moving away from the community that I was living in and just not knowing people and being very much an introvert myself. Not somebody who really wanted to step out into the community, but also deep down, I knew I had to, because you can't spend all your time in isolation. It's just not healthy. And I found out that I needed a balance. I couldn't be out all the time, but I also couldn't be alone all the time. And so it was kind of a work in progress trying to figure that out. But I did reach out to others who were grieving, and I found people who were really role models in that process. People who had moved through some significant loss and had come out on the other side with meaning and purpose and joy and fulfillment and hope. And so I started to seek out those people. And that really helped me on my journey to just have stories of people who had gone through it and were able to come out on the other side with joy and happiness again. Because I think that's, it's something that we all search for. search for our whole lives. But when we get struck with a loss, it's almost like we can give up. We can start to think that, the rest of our lives are just going to be sad. And that's a tough way to wake up in the morning thinking that that sorrow is going to be there for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. That makes me think back probably about 18, between 18 and 20 years ago. I was talking to somebody, and it's crazy because I don't remember the person and I don't remember their specific loss, but they told me a story about they went to like one of the groups, kind of like a grief group, where they were, if surrounded around other people who experienced a great loss. And the story they told me that like helped them was it was a young mother and her three children died in a house fire, and she
Mm,
was standing outside and she could hear her baby screaming. She knew they were in there, and there was nothing she could do. And it was such a situation that it was too dangerous for the firefighters to get in.
mm,
Um, and I just remember the person saying like that's what like helped them, because it was like, man, I got it bad. Like I lost, whoever, but man, can you
mm.
imagine? And I'm like, oh my. So that just came up when you were talking about that. And I'm just, yes.
Yeah.
Whew, that
Well,
community
humans are
support.
very resilient. Like it's amazing what we can go through and process with the right help and support, and to come out on the other side of. You think about how horrific that would be. And yet people are, and I've done so many interviews of people who have transformed their lives through some really awful traumatic experiences. So I truly believe that it's possible and that humans are built for this. We can do this.
Absolutely. So what does it look like when you have someone come to you and they're just suffering through a loss and they have no idea what to do? Like what does it look like? Like what's your plan with them? Like what are the, not specific or anything, but just kind of like how do you handle that type of situation?
Yeah, well, I like to meet with people first and just do maybe what you call a discovery call, just to meet them and give them an opportunity to get to know me a little bit. Because I think the most important thing is when you're seeking out support is that you resonate with the person that you're working with. I'm
Yes.
not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And, my grief coach maybe isn't the best grief coach for everyone else. But I really find that if you connect with that person, that is a big part of the success that's going to come out of it. And then, I work with people where they are. And I like to start with things that are most compelling for them in that moment. Sometimes the nigglies that are really bothering us and festering in us uh,
Mm-hmm.
are the things, and they seem so big, right? Because we often the mind cycles through things and makes it sometimes worse than it than it already is. So sometimes it's just as simple as talking through some of the biggest nigglies that you've got going on at the time, and just kind of working through those. It's very much a process, and I really believe that we all, like the emotions that are coming up and the circumstances that are before us, are actually placed there uniquely designed for our own healing. It's an opportunity to really dive deep into something that needs to be healed. Um, and it will, like you say, keep creating more and more opportunities for us to do that. We won't miss out, But if we pay attention and if we work with someone and walk through some of these things, the load becomes so much lighter, and you can feel that almost immediately.
Absolutely. So, What are some signs for people who are going through grief but are not dealing with it? Like they haven't gone through grief counseling or they don't want to talk to anybody. It's just there. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp, your online therapy solution. I'm going to be real with y'all. Therapy changed everything for me. Just having someone to talk to who's trained to help me and unpack life and reflect without judgment, that was powerful. BetterHelp is an online therapy platform that makes getting started easy. You fill out a quick questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist within a few days. And say you get matched with a therapist and they're not a good fit for you. You can switch at any time at no extra cost. So if you are ready to start your own healing journey, visit betterhelp.com/the healing version to get 10% off your first month. Again, that's betterhelp.com/the healing version. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people have been told that, you will grieve for a lifetime. You will learn to live with it. You will learn to carry it. You'll just get used to it. Those were lots of the things that I was told. And we can get stuck in those stories. And for me, it's not about, I mean, certainly we have to do the process. We have to go through the emotions and we have to give it time. But everyone's time is different. And at some point, you're going to reach a place where you're ready to feel good again. You're ready to start embracing something new. And if that doesn't come for you, or you can't figure out a way to get there, that's when I think, talking to someone, listening to some stories about others who have gone through and been able to move through the grieving process was really helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So what inspired you to create Awaken Your Soul's Journey, and what role does community play in healing?
Yeah, well, I wrote the book because in the early days, I was writing a little blog, and it started out just my journal, and then I started sharing it, and then people were saying how it was helping them and that they were appreciating it. And so then I thought, under the suggestion of a few people, that maybe I could write a book. And I think the purpose of it all was really to share my story and to give people hope, because when I lost Blaine, it just felt like I had a lot of messages out there about how, I would just learn to live with it, right? I would learn to carry it with me. Mm-hmm. And that just felt so defeating for me, that I could never feel joy again. And so I wanted to write the book, and I wanted to give people the tools that I used to help me. And so I shared everything that I could think of, the videos that I watched, the exercises that I did, the writing that I did, I shared it all in the hopes that someone would be able to take some of that and be able to use it to help them through their journey.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for creating that. I'm sure you're helping lots of people. So why is it so important for grieving individuals to feel seen and validated rather than fixed?
Oh, yes. Well, I believe that acknowledging grief is probably the most important part of the healing process. It's like we feel misunderstood. Because you can't really understand it until you've gone through it. And there's all of these aspects of the grieving process that people don't think about. like I said earlier, just grieving the future that you don't have with that person. And especially, now at the time of recording and just before the holidays, this can be a really tough time for people who have lost someone, because all of your memories now are really strong and emotional, and they're all connected with that person, right? And so there's this, underlying sadness that kind of creeps in and starts to take over. And so it's important, I think, to acknowledge people where they are and what they're feeling. And even if you don't know, acknowledging that it must be difficult is really important. There's so many people that don't understand, and they kind of disappear because they don't know what to say. They don't know what to do. And so the easiest thing is to just turn the other way. But when you're grieving, you really need someone to reach out. And it's not like they have to fix you. You're not broken. You just need that validation that, you're going to be, that these things are normal, that these emotions are normal, that what you're going through is normal, and that the process is normal, and that you will get through that, and that they're there for you while you move through that. I think those are the most important things. And I think the grief groups, I think that's what they do, is they'll often acknowledge you in your pain so that you can feel like someone understands. And then you can move on from there. But that really is the first piece.
Okay. And I think this next question is going to help a lot of people. I know for me, when I have like a friend or someone who is experiencing a loss, I'm always like, I can be there, but I don't know what to say, because I don't want to say the wrong thing and come off as being insensitive or offend them in any way. So I'm just like, I'm here. If you want to talk, I'll listen. So in regards to that, how can people support loved ones or friends or, whoever that's grieving without unintentionally causing harm?
Yeah, well, it's not as difficult as you might think. It really is about connecting with the person and just letting them know that you're thinking of them, that you know that they're going through a tough time. And for me, some of the most amazing things that my friends did for me was to bring meals, for sure, because that was one of the things you just don't feel like cooking often, or to take you out for lunch, give you that opportunity to go out with them or not, and to be flexible with that, right? Because on any given day, you may or may not feel like it. But I remember my friends offering to take me out to look at the Christmas lights. And so we just went for a drive around town and looked at the Christmas lights. And I just thought that was so kind of them to suggest that and to spend time with me in that way. And had I not wanted to go, I really feel like they wouldn't have, held that against me in any way, and, would have come back with maybe another suggestion. And I think, making suggestions about ways you can include that person is a good idea, because if you say, just let me know if you need anything, well, we have absolutely no idea what we need. You're so overwhelmed with the loss that you couldn't possibly tell someone what you need. And you certainly don't want to go around asking for it. Absolutely. And so, so it's really important to offer things and to be okay with them saying no sometimes. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I know that helped me, and I'm sure that helped others. Because again, I'm I don't know what to say. I couldn't imagine, especially when they losing a spouse or losing a child. It's I'm not going to say anything that, may be the wrong thing, but just being there and spending time is basically the answer.
And I mean, it's surprising how good it feels to hear stories about your loved one. Sometimes people think that, it's going to make them cry,
Mm-hmm.
bring up the sadness, but there's something really healing in that, hearing stories about your loved one. And so don't ever feel bad about sharing those memories with,
Yeah.
yeah, because it
Okay.
feels good. Even though there may be tears, it still
Mm-hmm.
feels good, and it's really healing.
Thank you for saying that, because I think that's another misconception is like not bringing a person up because I don't want them to like start thinking. And it's like if you think about it, they're not thinking about the person. Like
Absolutely.
so it's like you bringing a person up is not going to make them be like, oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. They're
Oh,
not going to
I
remember.
forgot. Now you just reminded me. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that actually makes a lot of sense. But I think just the human brain is just like, oh, I don't want you to cry. So
That's
thank
right.
you for that. That helped me and somebody else I know. So
Awesome.
many grieving people feel guilt around experiencing joy again. How do you help others release that guilt?
Yeah, that's a big one because when we do start stepping out and feeling good about our lives again, um, there's this innate response that happens, I think, to everyone where should we be happy? I mean, really, we lost our spouse. And what will others think if we're moving on and we're having a good time? Are they going to judge us for that? And so there's this, yeah, it's an inherent guilt that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I, I like to define guilt. Guilt is something that you purposely do wrong, right? You do something to hurt someone else or you do something incorrectly on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I would say most of the time, this isn't something you've done on purpose, right? To hurt
Mm-hmm.
anyone.
Absolutely.
And so the guilt is not, when you really dig down into it, it's more about fear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that fear of the unknown and what's coming up and how will I handle it? And everything's changed and I'm fearful because this happened and what else could happen? It's just like you have this fear. And so it's about learning to face that fear for sure and allow it, but then to move past it. And I think having a coach or someone to work with you through that is really important because fear can create anxiety in people, and it can be overwhelming, and it can cycle and build so
Mm-hmm.
that you can get to a place where you can't even leave your house. So it's important
Yeah.
to get that in check.
Absolutely. So, what is a message or words of encouragement, something you can give to someone who's currently going through grief because of a loss of a loved one? What is something that you would tell that person?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to give yourself lots of grace, to really look after yourself just like you would a best friend. So we often feel like we're alone, right? We feel like nobody understands us. And especially with me being a widow, many of us were in our houses alone. If something happened, nobody's there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really important to start becoming your own best friend. It's important to start looking out for number one and to do the things that you need to do to help you. So if that means going to see a counselor, then you do that. If that means it's a hot bath every day, then you do that. Whatever is starting to move you and give you some momentum in the right direction, you embrace that. And it's not a selfish thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're taught that we're being selfish, right? It's not about us. It's about everybody else. It's about the family. I have to keep a good image for the family. Well, it's about you. And
Mm-hmm.
this is a really important time to figure out who you are and what you want and what do you believe in and what gives you joy, and to start to seek that out.
Yes, yes. Thank you for that. So,
Mhm.
can you share with the listeners where they could purchase your book and also how they can contact you for any of your services?
Absolutely. So it is healingenergy.world. Healingenergy.world is my website, and absolutely everything is there. So the books that I've written, the blog posts, the podcast, the support group, the healing sessions that I offer, the coaching program, all of it is on that website.
Thank you. Thank you. And is that your social medias is also
Yes,
connected?
it's all on there as well.
And that
And
was healingenergy.world.
right.
And no
Healing.
worries, listeners, I will put that in the show comments for you so that you can get connected directly to Angela. And Angela, I thank you so much for being here and sharing this very powerful conversation. I don't feel like it was enough time. I'm definitely going to have you come back in the future.
Great.
It was a
Yeah.
joy.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say before we end the episode today?
I think the biggest thing that I always like to leave with people is that there is hope. And even in your darkest despair, there is hope. And I want you to know that and just reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out and look for that guiding light that will help you through this.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all so much for coming back for another episode of Versions of Healing. And we appreciate you. And until next time, peace.